The pot boiled over, spilling thick red stew onto the kitchen floor. My hands shook as I stirred, the hot oil popping angrily, burning my wrist. Tears rolled down my face. Not from the pain, but from the anger boiling inside me. Just 2 weeks ago, another maid had packed her bags and left, but not before whispering something that made my blood run cold. "Madam," she had said, smiling slyly, "your husband likes his food spicy. I know exactly how he wants it." That night, I couldn't sleep. My heart pounded in my chest as I thought about all the times my husband, Daniel, smiled at the maids when they served him food. The way he said, "You cook better than my wife," had sounded like a joke before, but now it felt like a knife in my heart. And that was the moment I decided, no more maids. If anyone was going to feed my husband, it would be me, even if I had to burn the kitchen down learning how to cook. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened that morning when Daniel came home early. The smell of my first real meal filling the house, and the last maid standing in front of him in my apron, smiling like she owned the place. He froze. I froze. Then I saw red. "Take off my apron," I said quietly. She laughed. "Oh, madam, I was just." I said, "Take it off." The wooden spoon dropped from my hand, splattering stew across the tiles. Daniel stepped back, his eyes wide. He had never seen me like that before. That was the day everything changed in our marriage. But to understand how it all started, to know why I fired every maid and learned to cook with my bare hands, you need to know what happened before that boiling moment in my kitchen. It all began 6 months earlier, when life in our home was still peaceful. Or at least, that's what I thought. When Daniel and I got married, everyone said we were the perfect couple. He was handsome, kind, and successful. I was gentle and caring, or so people believed. We lived in a big house with shiny marble floors and a wide kitchen I barely used. From the first month, Daniel said, "You don't need to stress yourself, honey. I'll hire help. You deserve to rest." At first, I agreed. Why not? We had 3 maids, Mary who cleaned, Joy who cooked, and Ruth who did laundry. Everything was smooth until the compliments started. "Joy, your stew tastes better than anything I've eaten," Daniel said one night, licking his fingers. I laughed it off. Of course it does. She's a professional cook. But deep inside, something shifted. It wasn't jealousy, at least not yet. It was discomfort. I noticed how Joy always served Daniel's plate herself, smiling a little too brightly. How she wore lip gloss when he was around. How she giggled when he praised her cooking. I tried to ignore it. But ignoring it was the first mistake. One afternoon, I walked into the kitchen and saw Joy teaching Daniel how to cut onions. He stood close behind her, both of them laughing as the onion juice made their eyes water. I froze. At the door. They didn't see me. The closeness between them made my heart ache. That night, I asked Daniel, "Do you think Joy likes you a little too much?" He looked up from his phone. "What? Don't be silly. She's just friendly." Friendly. That word echoed in my head for days. But soon, friendly became something else. I began noticing small things. His shirt smelling of spices when he came home early. Joy humming his favorite song while cooking. Her phone lighting up with messages at night that she quickly hid when I entered. I tried to act normal, but my spirit was uneasy. I prayed every night. "God, if something is wrong in my house, expose it." And he did. One Sunday morning, I came home from church early. Daniel had said he was too tired to go. I walked quietly through the hallway and heard laughter from the kitchen. My feet froze. I tiptoed closer and saw Daniel sitting on the counter, eating fried plantain while Joy stood between his knees, wiping oil from his lips with her fingers. My breath caught. "Daniel," I whispered. He turned shocked. "Oh, you're back early." Joy dropped the plate, oil splashing onto the floor. "Madam, it's not what it looks like." I didn't speak. I just turned around, walked out of the kitchen, and locked myself in our bedroom. Daniel came knocking minutes later. "It wasn't what you think," he said. But it was. I saw it in his eyes. The next morning, Joy was gone. I fired her without another word. Daniel didn't argue. He just kept his distance. But something inside me had broken. From that day, I decided never to let another woman handle my husband's meals again. The next maid I hired only did cleaning, But soon, she too began acting strange. Her name was Clara. She wore short skirts around Daniel and called him sir, in a soft, sweet voice that made my stomach turn. I warned her once. She smiled. The second time, I found her laughing in the sitting room while Daniel watched football. I didn't wait for a third time. I sent her away too. After Clara, I hired a new one, Martha. She was quiet and respectful at first. She barely talked. I thought maybe, finally, peace had returned. But one afternoon, when I came back from the market, I found her phone on the dining table, screen open. She was in the kitchen, so I picked it up and froze when I saw a message from an unknown number. Unknown? Did he like the stew today? Martha. He said it tastes better than Madame's own face-blowing that. My hands trembled. I walked straight to the kitchen and said calmly, "Pack your things." She stammered. "Madame, why?" "Because I said so." I didn't explain. I didn't shout. But that night, I made a promise to myself. I would cook for my husband. I would learn, fail, and burn pots if I had to, but I would never let another woman come between us again. The next morning, I tied my hair, wore an apron, and stood in front of the stove like a soldier ready for war. I had no idea how to even fry an egg properly, but I refused to stop. The first stew burned. The second one was too salty. The third one, well, even Daniel laughed when he saw how black it was. But each time I failed, I tried again. And that's how I ended up that fateful day. Standing in the kitchen, sweat dripping down my face, stew bubbling on the fire, when Daniel came home early and found the last maid wearing my apron. The sight of her smiling at him like she was the lady of the house made something snap inside me. I dropped the spoon. "Take off my apron," I said again, my voice shaking but sharp like a knife. She blinked. "Madam," I said, "take it off." The room went silent. Even the pot seemed to stop boiling. And then, a loud crash echoed behind me. Daniel's favorite glass had shattered on the floor. He wasn't holding it anymore. And the look in his eyes told me this fight was far from over. The sound of the broken glass echoed in my head long after it hit the floor. My chest rose and fell fast. My hand trembled, still holding the wooden spoon that dripped red stew onto the tiles. The maid, her name was Grace, stood frozen, her eyes darting between me and Daniel. "Madam, I didn't mean any harm," she said, her voice soft and shaky. "I was only helping." "Helping?" I snapped, stepping closer. "By wearing my apron? By smiling at my husband like you're the woman of this house?" Daniel tried to speak, but I raised my hand sharply. "Don't." For a moment no one moved. The air was thick with tension and the smell of burnt stew. Then, without saying another word, I turned to Grace and pointed toward the door. "Leave. Now." She hesitated, looking helplessly at Daniel, as if he would defend her. My husband's face was pale, his jaw tight. Finally, she walked past me, pulling off the apron and leaving it on the chair. The sound of the gate closing behind her felt like thunder in my ears. I didn't say a word. I walked back to the stove and turned it off. That evening, the house was painfully quiet. Daniel sat on the couch, pretending to read the newspaper. I sat opposite him, my mind boiling like the stew from earlier. After several minutes, he sighed and said softly, "You didn't have to send her away like that." I looked up, disbelief spreading across my face. "Excuse me. She didn't do anything wrong, Laura. You overreacted." I stared at him. "Overreacted? She was wearing my apron, Daniel. She was smiling at you like she was your wife." He rubbed his temples. "You're making this a big deal. I came home early. She said you were in the kitchen. I told her to help, that's all. Why do you always think every maid wants me?" His words stung. "Because it keeps happening." I shouted. "Every single one of them. You praise their cooking, you smile too much, and you let them get too close." He stood up suddenly. "So now it's my fault?" I looked up at him, my eyes filling with tears. "You don't even see it, do you? You don't see how they look at you. You don't see what it's doing to me." He sighed again, softer this time. "Laura, I love you. But you need to stop imagining things." That sentence broke me a little. Because to him it was imagination. But to me it was war. That night I didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing the sound of that glass breaking over and over. My mind raced with questions. Was I really overreacting? Or was I just tired of feeling replaced? By morning, my decision was clear. I packed all the maids' uniforms and took them to the backyard. When Daniel came out for breakfast, he found me burning them in a small metal drum. He rushed forward. "Laura, what on earth are you doing?" I didn't look up. I kept watching the flames eat through the white fabric. "No more maids," I said calmly. "No more women in my house." He blinked, shocked. "You can't be serious." "I'm very serious." I turned to face him. "From now on, I'll cook, I'll clean, I'll do everything. We don't need help." He shook his head in disbelief. "You're going to exhaust yourself."
He smiled. A sad, tired smile.
"Then at least I'll be tired for something worth keeping." He didn't argue. Maybe he knew I couldn't be stopped. That day marked the beginning of my new life. The life of a woman who didn't know how to cook but was determined to learn. First, it was a disaster. I burned rice, undercooked meat, and filled the house with smoke so many times that Daniel started opening windows the moment I walked into the kitchen. But every failure made me stronger. Every mistake reminded me of why I was doing this. One evening, I watched YouTube videos trying to learn how to fry chicken properly. I stayed up until midnight, writing down recipes like a student preparing for exams. The next morning, I woke up early, tied my scarf, and started again. This time, the food didn't burn. When Daniel came down for breakfast, I placed the plate in front of him: fried chicken, jollof rice, and salad. He looked at it suspiciously, then at me. "You made this?" "Yes," I said quietly, folding my arms. He took a bite. Then another. Then he smiled. "It's actually good," he said. My heart swelled. That smile, the one he used to give the maids, was finally for me. For the first time in months, I felt proud. I felt in control. Days passed. I got better. Soon Daniel stopped mentioning the maids altogether. He'd come home from work, kiss my forehead and say, "What's for dinner, chef?" Everything seemed peaceful again. For a while I thought the storm had passed. But I was wrong. One afternoon, I went to the market to buy groceries. When I returned, I noticed something strange. An unfamiliar perfume in the house. It was soft, flowery, and not mine. I frowned and called out, "Daniel." No answer. I walked to the kitchen. The dishes were clean. The stew pot was covered. But the smell of fresh perfume grew stronger near the dining area. Then I saw it. A pink scarf neatly folded on the arm of the couch. It wasn't mine. My heart dropped. My hands went cold. And then I heard a voice upstairs. A woman's voice. Laughing. I stood still, frozen in the middle of the living room, as realization hit me like thunder. I wasn't just fighting the maids anymore. Something much deeper had entered my home. The laughter from upstairs cut through the silence like a knife. It was soft at first, playful, teasing, but in that moment, it sounded like thunder in my chest. I stood frozen in the middle of the living room, staring at the pink scarf lying carelessly on the couch. My breath caught in my throat. For a second, I thought maybe I was imagining things again. Maybe it was the TV, or maybe Daniel was on a call. But no, the laugh was too close, too real, too feminine. Slowly, I began climbing the stairs, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Each step felt heavier than the last. My hands shook as I reached the top and stopped in front of our bedroom door. It was half open. I could see shadows moving inside. Then I heard her voice again, soft and sweet. "You're so funny, sir." Sir. That word made my stomach twist. And then, Daniel's voice followed, laughing lightly. "You shouldn't call me sir. It makes me feel old." I pushed the door open. The room went silent. Daniel was sitting on the bed, shirt unbuttoned at the top, while a young woman stood near the dresser, holding a folded towel. She froze, eyes wide like a deer caught in headlights. Daniel's smile disappeared instantly. "Laura," he started, but I raised my hand. "Who is she?" My voice was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that comes before a storm. The girl looked terrified. "Good afternoon, madam. I'm the new cleaner. Your husband said you needed help around the house." My heart dropped. I turned slowly to Daniel. "You did what?" He stood up, guilt written all over his face. "Listen, Laura, before you explode, just hear me out. You've been stressing yourself too much. You don't rest, you barely eat, and the house is getting too much for you alone. So I hired someone part-time. She just cleans. Nothing else. I stared at him, shaking my head. Without telling me? He sighed. I didn't want another argument. My voice rose. You mean you didn't want me to know? Daniel, how could you bring another woman into this house after everything that's happened? She's just a cleaner, for heaven's sake. That's what you said about the others. I shouted, my voice cracking. Do you ever listen to yourself? The cleaner stepped back, clutching the towel nervously. Madam, please, I swear I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just started today. I turned to her slowly. What's your name? Linda, she whispered. I nodded. Linda, pick up your things and leave. Laura, Daniel warned. I looked him dead in the eye. If she doesn't leave, I will. The room went silent. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Linda looked between us, then hurriedly gathered her bag. I'm sorry, madam, she murmured before rushing out the door. When she was gone, I turned to Daniel, tears filling my eyes. Why do you keep doing this to me? He rubbed his forehead, looking frustrated. I'm trying to help, Laura. You're turning our house into a battlefield. You don't trust anyone, not even me anymore. Maybe because you keep giving me reasons not to. I shouted. You say you love me, but every time I look up, there's another woman smiling at you under my roof. He threw his hands up. What do you want me to do? Stop living? Stop hiring help because of your jealousy? That word hit me like a slap. I'm not jealous, I said quietly. I'm just tired. Tired of watching my home become a place where I have to fight for what's already mine. He didn't reply. He just grabbed his car keys and left the house without another word. The moment I heard the car drive off, I sank to the floor and cried. Not the loud kind of crying, but the kind that comes from deep inside. The kind that feels like your heart is breaking in slow motion. For the next few days, we barely spoke. He stayed out late, claiming work was keeping him busy. I stayed in the kitchen, perfecting every meal I made, making sure the house was spotless. I was determined to prove that I didn't need anyone else, that we didn't need anyone else. But the silence between us grew thicker. Nights felt longer. Meals felt colder, even when they were hot. Then one Friday night, everything shifted again. Daniel came home later than usual, smelling faintly of perfume. Not mine. My heart clenched. I tried to stay calm. Long day? I asked softly, watching him take off his shoes. He nodded. Yeah. Very long. I'm exhausted. I forced a smile. Dinner's ready. Your favorite egusi soup. He sat down, picked up his spoon and started eating quietly. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then out of nowhere he said, You know, Laura, things weren't always like this. We used to laugh, talk, go out. I swallowed hard. And we can have that again. But I need you to stop bringing strangers into our home. He looked at me with tired eyes. Maybe the problem isn't the maids, Laura. Maybe it's the lack of trust. That cut deep. I stood up, trying to steady my voice. You think I enjoy feeling this way? I don't want to be suspicious, Daniel. But I can't ignore what I see. He sighed, pushing his plate away. Then maybe we need space. The room spun. Space. Just a few days. I'll stay at the guest house. Maybe we both need to breathe. I froze. I couldn't speak. He got up, kissed my forehead lightly and walked away. The next morning, his side of the bed was empty. Days passed. I cooked every meal alone. I prayed. I cried. I waited. Then one afternoon, I got a call from his secretary. Mrs. Daniel? I just thought you should know. Mr. Daniel took a trip out of town yesterday. He said he'd be back next week. Out of town? I repeated slowly. Yes, ma'am. He went with someone named Linda. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. Linda. The same cleaner I had sent away. I felt my heart stop. My knees went weak. And then, my world went completely dark. The moment I heard that name, Linda, my world stopped. The phone slipped from my fingers and crashed onto the tiled floor. My whole body went cold, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. I just stood there, frozen, my thoughts spinning faster than I could hold them together. Daniel. Out of town. With her. The same woman I warned him about. The same woman he said was just a cleaner. I fell to the floor and wept. It wasn't the angry kind of cry this time. It was quiet, broken, and empty. The kind of crying that comes when you've been strong for too long. I didn't eat that day. I didn't even lock the door. The house felt too big, too quiet, too lonely. Every room still smelled like him. Every corner reminded me of the love we once had, a love that now felt like ashes. That night, I sat by the kitchen window, staring at the stars, my apron still tied around my waist. I thought about everything I had done, firing the maids, learning to cook, trying to protect my marriage. And for the first time, I asked myself a painful question. Had I been fighting the wrong enemy all along? Maybe it wasn't the maids. Maybe it wasn't the cooking. Maybe it was the distance between us. Daniel came back a week later. When I heard his car pull up, my heart raced, not with excitement, but with fear and confusion. He walked in quietly, holding his travel bag. He looked tired, older somehow. There was guilt in his eyes, though he didn't say a word. "Where's Linda?" I asked. My voice was calm, too calm. "She's gone," he said quietly. "I sent her away before we came back. It was a mistake, Laura. I just wanted peace. I didn't mean to hurt you." I looked at him for a long time. The man I once saw as my whole world now looked like a stranger. "I didn't learn to cook because I wanted to impress you," I said softly. "I did it because I was trying to save what we had. But I realize now, if two people stop fighting for each other, one person's effort will never be enough." He stepped closer, eyes wet. "Laura, I stopped him. "No. Don't say anything. Not yet. You need to understand something first." He waited. I took off the apron and laid it on the table. "I cooked to protect my marriage. But I can't protect it alone. I've fought enough battles by myself. If you want us to work, then you fight too." For a moment, the silence between us was heavier than ever. Then he nodded slowly. "You're right." That night, Daniel sat with me in the kitchen for the first time in months. I showed him how to stir the stew, how to taste it before adding more pepper. We didn't talk much, but the quiet was peaceful. The same kitchen that had witnessed my tears now felt like a place of healing. Days turned into weeks. Things didn't magically become perfect. Trust takes time to rebuild. But Daniel started making small efforts. He spent more time at home. He listened. I smiled again, but carefully, like someone learning how to walk after a long injury. One Sunday afternoon as we ate together, Daniel reached for my hand and said, "You know, your food tastes better than anyone's I've ever had." I laughed, a real laugh, one that came from my heart. "You finally learned," I said. He grinned. "No more maids." I smiled back, shaking my head. "No more maids." Life lesson. Sometimes in our attempt to protect what we love, we fight shadows, forgetting that love itself needs trust, not control. I learned that no amount of cooking, cleaning, or guarding can keep a person who doesn't want to stay. But when two people truly choose each other, no outsider can take what belongs to them. So yes, I cooked to protect my marriage. But in the end, I learned that the real recipe for love is trust, forgiveness, and effort from both sides.